Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As the Democratic presidential nominating process gets underway, Democrats both nationwide and here in New York are deciding the future of their party. But we're going to take a few minutes and look at the state of the Republican Party here in New York. There's a fight over bail reform and immigration dominating the public policy conversation, and conservative New Yorkers often seem left out, in part because so few Republicans are holding elected office in our city and even around the state. Joining me now to talk more about this is the new chairman of the state Republican Party, Nick Langworthy. Welcome. Very good to see you.
No, thanks for having me, Errol.
You are the youngest Republican chairman in the history of the state, is what I read in your biography, and I read that at least in part as an effort to sort of retool the party for a new generation. Is that a fair statement?
Well, absolutely. I am the youngest person at 38 that was elected back on July 1st to chair our party. And we have to, grow our party among young people, people of color, people of all geographies. We need a strong Republican Party right here in the city of New York. I mean, it has to be something that we don't ignore, that we're constantly growing, because if a party's not growing, it's dying.
So you've only got a couple of ways to do that, right? You either pull people over from the Democratic column or from undecided or from a third party, or you sort of grow them from scratch. What's the strategy that makes most sense to you?
Well, I mean, what we sense is a great way forward is, with the extreme leftward, lurch of the Democrat Party, especially as they now control all facets of New York State government, is that, we want to be a part of the common sense comeback in the state of New York. I mean, we're not out there trying to achieve a right-wing agenda. We're trying to get back to a place of common sense in the state of New York, not policies that are there to score, social justice points or put points on the board for someone's future political aspirations for a presidential campaign, but really respecting taxpayers again. That is what's missing in politics in New York State. It's been desperately missing. I hail from upstate New York, Buffalo, but as we continue to see what these policies have done, to the suburbs and to the city, and the population loss that we've suffered in this state, which is going to lead to federal representation loss and a loss of clout for New York, we have to look in the mirror and say, we can do better and we deserve better for the price that we're paying.
Okay. I want to ask you about a particular issue that just came up in the last few days, which is the administration shutting down New York's access to the global entry process, which is expedited screening when you're going in and out of the country, well, really coming back in. How's it playing out in Western New York? Because I know there's a kind of a different scenario there where people are driving back and forth across the border.
Well, we have, binational travel is something that's a way of life in Western New York, where I live. This is something that, a lot of us saw coming. I know Senator Mike Ransenhofer in the debate on the issue of the green light legislation brought this up, that this was going to jeopardize our position with these federal programs. That was ignored. And on top of it, Andrew Cuomo's insistence that we shield our DMV databases from federal officials in the name of trying to score political points, that has endangered our status within these organizations. And, what does New York do? They sue the government instead of just understanding that other states that do offer these driver's licenses to illegal immigrants, that, we oppose greatly that legislation. But those that do share that data with federal officials. Their citizens are allowed to be part of global entry and Nexus in those important programs. Many New Yorkers are caught in the crosshairs here of this fight and this standoff between our federal officials and New York State trying to, be this progressive capital of the world. It's not serving the taxpayers that are paying for this monstrosity of New York State government.
Yeah, as one of those people caught in the middle. I mean, I got global entry, and one thing, I guess we'll find it out in the course of the court case, but I thought the driver's license was the least of it. I mean, they asked me for a lot of documents. They asked for fingerprints. They asked for all kinds of information. I can't imagine why that particular database for the driver's license would be a deal killer if they know everything else about you. You've got to be a passport holder in order to even get the service.
I am not an expert on these federal programs. I have trusted traveler for TSA pre-check. I know there's a background check that goes in that. But every other state that participates, that has access to that, doesn't shield its data from federal officials. Andrew Cuomo wants to, be a leader in this movement. He's trying to, in essence, create a safe haven, a sanctuary state, create two levels of citizenship. You can't be a U.S. citizen and then have a separate citizenship for New York. I mean, we are all Americans, and that needs to be the forefront. We need to follow federal laws.
Let me go back to something we were talking about before. One tried and true strategy that political parties have been using for 200 years is to get newly created citizens and get them signed up in their political party. Is that a strategy you're going to be
certainly, we want to reach out to people that are coming here, that are doing things the legal way. And in talking about, you know, the thing that I saw as I was traveling around campaigning to be the chairman was meeting with, you know, first-generation Americans that are business owners. And they talked about how upset they were at the socialist movement in the Democrat Party because they fled other countries, came here for opportunities to not be a part of that. And now they see people wanting to bring that, where it's failed everywhere else in the world, bring that here to the United States. I think there's a great opportunity for us to grow our party among people that have come here to flee oppression elsewhere.
Okay, very interesting. Let me ask you about a couple of races. That's your business at hand in an election year. Well, let's start with president. The president, you got one of the hardest assignments in politics, right? This is the president's home state. It's where you grew up. There's really no prospect of him winning the state, or at least not to the point where you should be putting a lot of resources into New York State. So how does that work for you?
Well, let's see if Bernie gets the nomination or not. But I will say that, you know, we're not a swing state by definition. You know, haven't been in a long time. You know, we haven't gone red since Reagan '84. So I don't anticipate there being an aggressive presidential general election campaign here. But there are critical seats around the state, both in the state Senate, the state Assembly, as well as going to pick up those seats in the Congress that slipped away from us in 2018. And increasing the playing field and putting more seats on the board there. There's many areas where Donald Trump performed very well in 2016 that I think we're going to enjoy great gains in the Congress.
So one of those districts of a special interest to us here, of course, is New York 11 in Staten Island and southern Brooklyn. I saw a Young Guns program where Republicans are supporting Nicole Malliotakis, but also Joe Calderara. Which is it?
I expect Nicole Malliotakis will be the nominee of the party. You know, there may be a primary. We'll see when the petitions get filed. But she has been out there aggressively raising funds, working very hard. She's a proven vote getter. She's someone that, you know, can take the fight directly to Max Rose, expose his hypocrisy, because he says one thing when he's in Staten Island. He says another thing once he goes to Washington. We saw that mostly, you know, through impeachment, where, you know, he writes op-eds. He makes public statements that impeachment was destructive and would take the country in the wrong direction. And instead, what do you have? He gets there, he follows the money. He knew that the money that got him there in the first place, that Act Blue, you know, liberal money that's come in, would dry up overnight if he had voted against impeachment.
Interesting. Okay. Well, there are many other races on the campaign trail. We'll have to talk about them another time. Until then, thanks so much for coming in. Let's take a short break here. Coming up, I'll be joined by some members of the real estate industry as the ban on broker's fee temporarily gets put on hold. Later on tonight, we'll bring you the very latest from New Hampshire as polls close in the presidential primary. Who will come out on top? There's a scene from the polls right now. I'll talk it over with a politics panel. Stay with us.